Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. This is Alex. I'm so glad you're joining me again. Here we are. A lot of interviews in this season. I decided that I was pretty bored hearing myself talk, and if I'm bored, you're definitely bored. So I've got some fascinating, interesting people as you've been listening on, and today is no exception. You know, they say the play's the thing. That's from Hamlet, and for some people, a play is something that they may have to endure because their kids do it, and they get through it and move on to watching sports or soap operas or whatever they do. And then there's other people, a play is something that they get a lot of personal rewards from. But then there's the people who the play is truly the thing because they are a part of what makes the play happen. They are the writers, the directors, the actors, the producers. And today we're going to talk to somebody who's probably filled almost all of those roles, maybe all of them, I'm not sure. But we're going to find out because today we're going to be with award-winning actor and director Scott Bartley. Scott, welcome to Mysterious Goings On.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. You know, we go way back. I should tell everybody if there's a certain familiarity that Scott and I have. I've only known the guy about 35 years, so 34, maybe more. My goodness.
It's got to be more than that.
Maybe, yeah. We might be. We're not.
I'm thinking 60.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. I'm not ready for that. But yeah, we went to school together, and we did plays together. We acted together, and we did state contests together, and we did that kind of thing. And then we did some community together, some community theater before I moved away, and it was always so rewarding. I've always said this, that I've never had a better partner on stage than Scott, because he and I managed to find a really good groove with each other usually, and we picked good projects together as well. But Scott has far exceeded my humble acting days, and has probably been in how many shows you've been in? Do you think? Have you ever counted them up?
Oh gosh, like going all the way back to high school?
Yes, please.
Or just since then?
No, I want to hear the whole number, man.
I really couldn't guess. 30? 40? I don't know.
Gotta
younger.
Gotta.
Well, it's possible because, when I was a younger man, before family ties and things like that, I would do multiple shows in a year.
Right.
Now you have to be a little more careful, a little more selective because, I like to see my family sometimes.
Yeah.
And also it's just as you get older, I get tired easily. So I have to be a little more judicious about choosing what shows I want to do and the time I'm going to commit and things like that. So I don't know, 40, 50.
Wow. It's phenomenal. And Scott's a triple threat too. I'll embarrass you a little bit. You can not only act, you can sing, and you can dance. You can do it all. And that's a rare combo. I couldn't. I can kind of sell the song if I have to, but I'm not a good singer, and I'm not a great dancer. I'm a decent actor. You got it all three going on, man. So you must be in big demand.
I'd say I'm more of a 2.5 threat. I would never call myself a dancer. I can move. Yes. On stage,
you can.
And I can usually sell a song. I even a few years back had to learn to tap dance for a show, and I'd like to think that I mostly pulled it off. I had people coming up afterwards going, "Oh wow, so how many years have you been taking tap?" And I said, "About 2 months." So, you get good people that teach you, so it looks like you know what you're doing. So I would never call myself a dancer, but I do okay. And once again. In my younger days, I was a little better. Now it's hard to even just walk across stage without falling over. So,
Let's just get into it though because there's so much going on in what you're doing now that I want to talk about with the full grace of maturity in your acting and in what you're doing in your art. But what drew you to this? And you can start at school, I guess, because that's where we met on the stage, basically. What drew you to acting?
That's such a broad question. I guess. My first taste of it came in grade school. Like with most kids, you get on stage and you do a little thing here and there. And I think it was maybe 6th grade, and we did a production of Robin Hood at my elementary school. And I was the sheriff of Nottingham, and my mom. Yes, I know. And believe me, I was evil with my giant glasses. But my mom made me the costume and got to go up there, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember thinking, wow, I really like this. Unfortunately, then, back in those days, it was junior high and high school. Now it's middle school, and, these kids today, they don't know. But so I went to junior high, as you did, and we went to different junior highs.
Right.
The one I went to didn't have a drama program. And so for 3 years, I really, the only stage experience I had was in vocal music and show choir and things like that. But then when I got to high school and hooked up with you, the bug just bit me hard. It just, I don't know. There's so many different possible reasons I could give you for being drawn to it. The vain answer is just the glory and the joy of being on stage and hearing people laugh and cheer for you. And that was probably it to begin with. And I won't lie, that's still a little bit of it. But now it's more challenging myself, pushing myself, seeing what I can accomplish and what I can't. And I guess bottom line, I really enjoy entertaining. I try to somewhat in my everyday life. I'm a high school teacher, and so you have to entertain on a daily basis if you want to keep their attention for more than 3 minutes. There's a lot of things, but I think initially what drew me to it was just the excitement, the thrill of being on stage live. Anything could happen, and having your peers and your parents and your aunts and uncles come and cheer and tell you how wonderful you are.
It's a heady thing.
It is.
And when you're a younger person and fraught with, and I'm not saying you specifically, but when you're a young person fraught with insecurity and how do I fit in and can I please be good at something, Lord, and you were, and you're so good and so entertaining. And that's why I loved working with you, because you and I played off each other so darn well. And we were great at entertaining people, but you just had it all going on though. But then you also, I remember in school, you had the vocal music side, which you still did. And you're entertaining there. And I remember going to some of your vocal music performances, and you made those, I think, more entertaining, because I think you not only could sing well, but you could sell the song in an entertaining way, if that makes sense. Because you probably had a lot of kids who could sing well, but they're not great performers. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm not catching that right.
No, that makes perfect sense. You can have someone with the greatest voice in the world, but they may not. There's something that I always refer to as stage presence. There are people that I believe that are just naturally gifted when it comes to that when they get on stage, they have a presence, an aura, something that you want to watch. And some people, unfortunately, struggle in that area. And they may be very gifted vocally, and they may be great dancers. I've directed people that were wonderful dancers, technically, but there was nothing going on facially. Yeah. And I call that dead face. And I'm like, look, you have these steps wonderfully, but there's nothing happening, and that stage presence isn't there. And so I think that's kind of what you're alluding to.
I think that's it. And you I remember seeing these things. I've seen you do, and I've seen some of other of our friends who were great at this, who could. You didn't have the dead face, and it just made the songs come alive a little bit more. So it's an entertaining thing. It's a lovely gift to have, and it's an awareness that it's hard to teach, as you just alluded to. It's kind of hard to teach that to people, I think.
I honestly, I don't know if you can. I think people can get better at it, but I think that's why there are professional actors and amateurs, because I think those professionals are the ones that have that gift, that have that ability. I use the illustration a lot of times to my students. I used to teach theater at the high school level. I don't anymore because they drove me crazy. But one of the things that I would tell them is, look, I could go right now and start working out 6 days a week and get a professional trainer and get a basketball coach and work for hours in the gym every day. But I'm never going to play in the NBA because I do not have that natural gift, that natural talent. I can get better. My skills can improve and things like that, but I'll never have that elite talent. And I think it's the same for any kind of performing, whether it's just acting, singing, dancing, any kind of art form. Well,
we're both fans of Stephen King, and since this is a lot of writers who listen to this show is, he said about writers, he said he doesn't believe writing good. He doesn't believe you can be taught into becoming a gifted writer. You either are or you aren't. Now, he doesn't say everybody. He says most people can become better, like you said. You can maximize the gifts you have, but if you think, well, if I just write every day for 20 years, I'll be Shakespeare. It ain't gonna happen.
No.
There's plenty of people who are at that kind of what I like to call the middle of the meatloaf, which is tasty and juicy, and they can do a good job, but you ain't the whole enchilada. See, I've just mixed my metaphors there. So it's interesting because I feel the same way about writing that you're talking about acting and performing. It's not a slight to anybody, because most of the people in professional sports are freaks of nature anyway. And physically, and not just physically, but their minds, the way they can go to the game. So I happen to think that great actors are kind of freaky too. Some of them are so good, they're scary as individuals off stage. And I've once or twice run into people like that, and it's he's like, I enjoy watching you, but I don't want to interact with you off stage any further. But so you did. I know this, you had a great secondary school career, but then you went on to university, right? Now, were you studying theater at university initially, or what were you studying?
That's a long, convoluted story. I actually, when I first went to college, I was going to be a music teacher. And that didn't last very long. So then I did make the decision to switch to theater. And so I thought, I can be a theater major. I mean, how hard is that? And I did that for about a year and, took the typical acting, directing classes, things like that. But then that little voice in the back of my head said, what are you really going to do with a theater degree? There's I remember my theater professor at the time said, look, it's not a question of talent. I think you're very talented, but it's such a small percentage of people. And you could say this for any craft that we're talking about, the arts, the athletics, or whatever. It's such a small percentage of people that actually make it to that higher level, actually earn a living at it. And there's so many other aspects that are involved in that. Sometimes things are just out of your control. So, I came to that realization of do I continue with this? Do I not? And so I switched majors again. Oddly enough, then about a year later, I quit school. And I think you remember this. This is when I moved out to California.
Right. Because
I was accepted to a theater school out there and went out there to pursue that dream. It was not quite what I expected when I went there. I went through an extensive audition process to get accepted to this school. So I thought when I went, it's going to be the elite, the best of the best, all the kids that are coming here, because, I was, I think, 20 when I did this. I thought everybody here is going to be, cream of the crop. And I quickly learned that they weren't. Ooh. And this is going to sound horribly arrogant, which I often do. But I quickly learned there that I was pretty far ahead of most of my classmates. A lot of them had no musical ability. Some of them were right out of high school. Some of them were in their 30s. But just my few years of experience with music and with theater and just natural ability, I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels there. And I even had a few of my professors pull me aside and say, look, I know you're not getting challenged here. Maybe you should go audition for some things, which was actually against school policy, because while you were in school there, they looked at it as this is a professional gig and you can only do things here and you can't go on auditions while you're here in school. But I had this professor say, you should probably go out and start auditioning for things. And I remember saying, what if I get cast in something? And she said, well, then you'll have a decision that you have to make. Do you want to continue in school here, or is it a big enough opportunity for you to move on? That didn't ever happen because after a semester, I ended up, for various reasons, dropping out. And I stayed out there in Southern California for about another year, maybe year and a half. And I did get cast in a few things, some community theater productions, but I quickly learned in that time what a difficult business it is to earn a living in.
It's a real grind, isn't it?
Oh, well, I hearkened back to the words of my theater professor who said it's not really about talent, because it's more about, like you said, it's the grind. It's learning the business. It's volunteering to work in theater so you can get your actor equity points, so you become union, because most agents won't look at you unless you're union. And it was kind of I don't know how to do that. And I was kind of on my own and came to that realization. It isn't just about talent. It's so many other things. And I could live out here for 10 years and maybe eke out a living, but is that really what I want to do? So. Yeah.
And so you did the waiting tables thing.
I did. Yes, literally.
Literally waited the tables. But you did, as I remember, you did, like you said, you got cast in some plays, and I think you were an extra in a film or two, and I've done that too. And it's a lot of hurry up and wait, and it's interesting for the first couple hours, but after a while you're like, it does add up. But the thing is that you hit a point where you're just like, this isn't for me. This grind isn't going to work for how I envision my life to go. And but I may have told you this, but I've always admired you for trying, for going. And there's so many people who practically never leave their county, and they just say, True. what if, and it's easy, knowing you, by the way, it's easy to kick yourself for things like trying to do things because I'm king of failure here. But I like I'm not calling you a failure, by the way, about your acting, but I mean, I'm just talking about trying to do things and not getting the full result that you want, failing or whatever. I mean, there's so many things I've tried to do, as you well know, that didn't work out, but cliche is true in my opinion. It makes you who you are. The reason I'm asking you about this actually, though, is because I want to draw a line back to when you did come home. Did it ever cross your mind that you were just quitting acting altogether at that point? Were you disgusted with it, or was it like, I'm going to regroup and I'm going to perform again?
No, I don't think I ever had the thought that I'm never going to act again, because you brought up cliches. It was in my blood. I mean, it was something that I thought, I'm always going to do this at some level, even though it may not be what I originally envisioned it to be. I'm probably not going to earn a living. This is not going to be my profession, but it hasn't taken away the joy, the passion, any of those things. So I decided I would find, other venues, other opportunities for me to be able to perform. And luckily, most places, one thing about Oklahoma, I'll say, and that's where I'm at, is it does have a pretty vibrant community theater program throughout the state. Right. There are some really solid programs here. There are some that are the absolute cliche of community theater, and you go see shows there, and you just kind of sit back in your seat and slump down and put your hand over your eyes because it's somewhat painful.
Is it like the third year in a row they've done Oklahoma or something?
Exactly, yes. And you see old Mr. Smith from down the street getting up on stage because he's been playing this role for years and years, and he's just god awful. But everybody loves old Mr. Smith, so nobody's going to say anything to hurt his feelings. But and that's probably how they feel about me now.
I doubt
Scott's been doing this for years. What are we going to tell him that he stinks?
I don't think so, but yeah.
But my point is, they're in Oklahoma City and Tulsa and even in other places around the state, because I've had the opportunity now over the last several decades to see and experience a lot of these places. And some of them are actually pretty impressive. And so I decided, look, this is not going to be my bread-winning activity, but I'm always going to do it. And I remember when I got married, and I'll be married 25 years this December.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe she's still with me.
You're still, by the way, a very lucky man. I think I told you that on your wedding day.
I think you did, and I will not disagree with you.
There you go.
But I told her, I said, listen here, wife, because that's how I address her.
Yeah.
I said, I will do my best to be a good husband and present and someday a father and those things. But one thing I'm always going to do theater. I'm always going to want to perform. And she understood that. She knew that that was part of my life. In fact, when we got engaged, it's kind of a strange story, and I won't bore you with that. But she was working at a college in the admissions office where we went to school. And she came back and she announced to her friends that she was getting engaged. And somebody said, to who? Because they didn't even know she was dating anyone. And she said, Scott Bartley. And someone in the office said, Scott Bartley, the actor? And so I was like, wow, okay. And so she knew my reputation had already preceded me. She had seen me in several shows. She knew that that was a big part of my life. And she wasn't about to say, no, now that you're married to me, you're not doing that anymore.
Right.
But she knew it was going to be a big part of my life. And luckily, she is not someone who's on stage often, but she loves going to the theater. And she has also been a big part of my experiences here in the community theater where I work now. So it's been great.
Well, let's talk about that. You have become the Mr. Smith. No, I'm just kidding. You have become the of your local community theater. I may have to say the name of it because, frankly, there's national. You have some national attention to this theater. Lest you think I'm talking to the listeners now, Scott, but lest you think this guy is the Mr. Smith, just understand this: your production of Annapurna went all the way to the. I'm making sure I get the name right. The American Community Theater Association's Regional Play Festival.
Yes.
The show got second place, but which means that it didn't go on to nationals. It just barely missed it by this much. But you, sir, were awarded a consolation prize of Best Actor.
That is correct, and it was something that I was pretty proud of. I'm not going to lie.
You should be.
I told a friend of mine, I said, look, I understand it's just community theater. However, these are all people that, for whatever reason, some of them could have gone professional. They have the talent, they have the ability, but for whatever reason, kind of like me, didn't. Right. And so to be celebrated by a group of my peers and these judges who are, it was a panel of 3 judges that awarded me that, and they're all active in the theater community on a professional level, on a collegiate level, and so it's people that know what they're doing, and it was a great honor for me. I was pretty excited about that. I would preferred that our show had advanced, and I'd like to think that maybe a fist fight broke out amongst the judges as they were trying to determine which show was first place, and we were right there with them. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yes, we have had some success recently. The way the whole festival cycle works is each state has typically their own festival, and then they send 1 or 2 shows from the state to the regional festival, and that's what had happened last summer.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you win the Oklahoma regional or Oklahoma State Festival then?
Yes, we did that last summer, and I can't remember how many theaters competed, and they actually selected 2 shows to advance, and we were one of them. We were technically the winner, but there was another show that advanced along with us to regional competition.
Kind of like a wild card or something? Is that what they were? Is that a way? I guess that's not right, but
I don't want to diss anyone here because technically there was not a first and second place. Mm-hmm. They just said these 2 shows are going to advance to represent Oklahoma.
Okay.
But, if you ask me, we won. So, and then, yes, we went on to the regional competition. It was in Texas last month. That was a region of 5 states. And I think there it's into 10 or 11 regions around the country. And then, as you mentioned, each regional winner then advances to the national competition. So we were close. I felt good about the show we did, but, I guess we'll just go do it again.
Well, and it's only a matter of time, Best Actor. But so this is Char White's play. It's a two-character show that was done initially by the husband and wife team of Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman. They did it off-Broadway in 2014. And basically what happens in this, after 20 years apart, Emma tracks Ulysses, who you played, to a trailer park in the middle of nowhere for a final reckoning. I just want to talk a little bit of detail about this show. I wish I'd seen it, first of all. And you know what? And seriously, bonk me on the head next time you're doing a show this great and you don't tell me, get your butt down here and see it. You come out as Ulysses. Now, is this correct? Do you come out not nude, but close to nude? Is that right?
Well, first of all, what's the typical age of your listeners, Alex? I don't want to, offend anyone here.
Probably 60, so it's okay. It's all good.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, that is true. The show opens and Ulysses is wearing only a tiny apron. It's kind of described as being almost a loincloth. Now, when Nick Offerman did it, and I know other productions have probably done the same, that's all he's wearing. And so there's a point where he goes to the door and turns around, and the audience gets a nice flash of the behind area.
Bye, Cracky.
Yes. I didn't, and here's where I'm ashamed of my craft. I didn't go quite that far. I did have the tidy whities on underneath. But I had people tell me later on that, and I wasn't quite sure how to take this. One lady said, I was terrified that you didn't have anything on underneath. And so when you turned around, I was somewhat relieved. And I was like, thank you. So, wow. But even that, I have to say was a little frightening and liberating at the same time. I mean, honestly, it wasn't much more different than what you would see someone at the local, swimming pool wear.
Sure.
But, people can't see me, and I'll just tell them because I know my voice, it probably makes me sound like a very fit, almost Olympic trained athlete type body.
An Adonis.
Yes. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I think, words like dumpy, schlubby.
That's not true. That's really not true, folks. It's really not.
Probably, I can factually say I weigh more than I should for a man my age.
Fair enough.
So, and it's not muscle. Let me just tell you that. To come out like that, it was a little scary. It was a little daunting. And my wife, when I first told her about it, she was like, "You're going to do what?" And I said, "No, honey, it's okay because it's all part of the show and it's all for the good of the show." And once she saw it, she agreed. I think she was still a little embarrassed, but typically the lights come up and that's the first thing you see are the two of them standing there. And every time we did the show, we would basically have to hold for several seconds because once the audience sees the picture and sees me there, there's quite a bit of laughter. Once again, not sure exactly how to take that, but I'm going to take it as I was acting in a way that would cause the audience to laugh. I think they were laughing with me, not at me.
And I hadn't seen the show, but I know you well enough and have acted with you enough to know what you were doing. And did you have the oxygen cannula in your nose at the same time or no?
Yes, yeah.
So you had oxygen?
Has that in
so oxygen?
And a little tank on the back, yes.
Oh my God, what a tableau right there. So I asked that question because you and without psychoanalyzing you, I know you also have an introverted side to you, yet theater has empowered you, and you have empowered actually this theater to take chances. I know for a fact you were the first one, I think, to bring a David Mamet play to this theater. Is that true, or am I off base?
That I would have to do a little research, but that may very well be true. As a community theater in I don't want to say a small town, a mid-sized town in the state of Oklahoma, the selection of shows over the years, usually you want to play it pretty safe. And every once in a while, they would take things a little closer to the edge, but for the most part, you have to know who your audience is, and you don't want to do things that would completely alienate them. But at the same time, in the theatrical world, and dealing really with any kind of arts, you want to push things,
Right.
and not just to be shocking, not just to say, oh, look at this, aren't we edgy? But I think some of the best art, whether it's theater or dance or music or sculpture or painting, are things that take chances and push the edge and push the envelope. And so I don't want to say that I was some great revolutionary, because other people had wanted to do the same thing. But in the mid 90s, I started introducing some shows. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? And, there was a little bit of hand wringing and pearl clutching and, oh, we can't do that. That's got foul language and things like that. And so I said, well, what if we did it as part of like a summer season? And that way we bill it as a more mature type thing. And so we did. And, I like to joke. I did several shows like that, and tens of people came to see it and enjoyed it.
We did what? That's what we always did, right? The summer season, the 2 or 3 shows I did with you. That was that's what you call. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Now, except for Art, when we did the show Art, that was actually part of the regular. Yes,
that was a fun show.
It was, and I'll tell you this, a little quick side story. Every time we start selecting a new season, we always joke about, will it bring in more than Art? Because
yeah, that was not a success, was it?
No, but I will defend that show to my dying day, because the 16 people that came to see it, they all loved it. And I thought it was a strong production, great acting, great directing, and I will always defend it. But it wasn't a typical regular season type show that involves a lot of people and brings in big audiences. But yeah, you're right. We did do the play Oleana, which is a David Mamet script, because when I was in college, I loved David Mamet shows. But as you know, and as some of your listeners may know, when it comes to especially the language, very, very profane. Especially if you look at a show like Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, yeah.
We used to sit and say, gee, how many F words are in here? Let's start counting. And then you lose count. But we have since then, I think, gone a little further. And even in our regular season, we've gotten to the point now where I feel like we've done some shows that 20 years ago we probably wouldn't have. And I think if we don't continue to push, we do our audiences a disservice by only giving them just a small portion and expecting that that's the only thing they can like. And I think there's so much theater out there, and there's so many good plays and musicals that maybe do push that edge. And I want to bring them here because I know there's an audience for them.
Well said. And I know this town you're in, and it's not a slight to them, but it's a fairly conservative town. Even though there's a couple of higher education institutions there, it's a fairly conservative community. So you were taking a lot of risks there, and I think it says a lot that the board went with you on these decisions and trusted you. Do you have a position on the board, at the theater now? Are you artistic director of some sort, or on a board member or something?
Well, I have been a member of the board now for several years, and I'm just about to finish up my second year as president of the board. So, when you say it's great that I can get board approval, I just I come in and say, all right, guys, here's what we're doing. And, I kind of come in and say, it doesn't matter what the Constitution says, we're doing what I say. So if that reminds you of anyone else, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but you have a way better body.
No, it's not like that. That is true. I will agree. No, I've served as president, and when they approached me about doing it, I thought, I don't know if I want that kind of responsibility, but okay. And so it's been a lot of fun, and I've got we are term limited. I've got one more year on the board, and then you have to rotate off for a period of time. And I'm assuming they'll elect me for my final year as president. I think mainly because nobody else wants to do it. So, but I think I can look at my time during this. We're in the middle of applying for some grants. We're trying to upgrade our lighting system. We just purchased a brand new state-of-the-art light board, and we're hoping that this grant we've applied for will provide us with some additional funds to buy some new lighting instruments to go with it. So we're trying to do some things to make sure our theater is viable for another 20, 30 years.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful facility, and is it thrust or an arena, or what am I thinking here? It's not a proscenium.
No, it's a thrust where you have seating on three sides.
Three sides.
So now there is a proscenium opening upstage, and you can kind of play things as though you're on a proscenium. But that is one thing as a director that you really have to think about.